Because as far as I'm concerned, I am sick and tired of hearing people who have honest questions being called anti-Semitic by Jews who are not even Semitic. They're Germans. Where the hell does anybody get off of calling their fellow citizens in any country a name because they ask a question? You say something about the Pope, and all you got to do is read history, and you'll see it. Therefore, you're now Catholic bashing. No, I'm intellectually honest, and I'm tired of bullshit. Period. Second, I'm tired of being told how holy Israel is, because I will guarantee you there's nothing holy in Israel. The only thing holy coming out of Israel are the stories. They're full of holes. Anybody that does their homework knows there's a whole world of lies and deception going on in the Middle East, from drug worship, penis worship, sex worship, sun worship, human sacrifice. Oh, well, we would never do a human sacrifice. I mean, that's terrible. Was Jesus human? Oh, yes, he was human. Was he sacrificed? Yes. So then he was a human sacrifice? It's incredible. You realize that Christianity is nothing more than the oldest and most ancient pagan religion the world has ever known. It's called sun worship. This is my field now. Now I feel more comfortable in this. If you go back to day one, and go back as far back into ancient history as you can go, you will find and discover that the most ancient concept of evil in the world was darkness. The whole human family realized that when the sun went down, it got dark. And consequently, in the Egyptian system, the sun which comes up in the morning was our risen Savior. And of course, the sun is your risen Savior. You don't think so? Wait till it don't come up. Right? It's your risen Savior. Yes, the sun is your Savior. And consequently, the ancient Egyptians said that the sun walked across the sky in 12 equal steps. And his name was Horus. There were 12 Horuses. And Horus walked across the sky in 12 equal steps. This is where we get the alcoholics 12-step program. Yeah, you go through school. You got to go through the 12-step program to the 12th grade. Why? Because of Jesus with the 12 apostles, the 12 brothers of Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel. There was no tribes of Israel. That's why they say, well, we can't find them. The reason you can't find them is the same reason why Jesus is not coming back. He wasn't here to start with. It's a story, for God's sakes. And the rabbis and the priests know that. I used to sit around and listen to the priests shoot the breeze all the time, lighting up, talking about, this is a sensational thing we got going here. Hey, the same people who gave you the mafia gave you the church. The church is the mafia. I had an FBI man call me many years ago. I feel safe now saying this, from San Diego, and I was in Los Angeles. And I got a phone call from an FBI man. And he said, this is not business, it's a social call. So I said, give me your name and where are you out of? And he said, San Diego, and I got his name. And I said, I'll call you back. I hung up and I called information and asked for the FBI in San Diego. Then I called that number and asked for him, and they put me through. Now at least I know he is who he says he is. So then I said to him, all right, talk to me. What do you want? And he said, I just want to tell you that we've been watching you. We follow you wherever you go. We know what you're doing, okay? And he says, but you are not a threat. And the people here at the FBI, the working class guys here at the FBI, we admire what you're doing, what you're trying to do. And he says, but your government does not consider you to be a threat yet. But if you get enough people listening to you, and they're not just listening, but they're actually hearing you, then you will be considered a threat, and now we'll have to take another look at what you're going to do, okay? And he said, but the reason I'm calling you is to tell you and warn you. And this is an unofficial call. When you talk about corruption and government, most people in government couldn't care less. They don't care. They know they're corrupt and they know it and you know it. So what are you going to do about it? But when you talk about the church and religious institutions in this country, he said to me, what you're doing is you are messing with organized crime at its highest levels. The highest levels of organized crime in this country are the religious institutions. We're talking about a lot of money. We're talking about the control of men's minds. We're talking about the dream of absolute total domination. This makes the mafia look like child's play. And consequently, I have an FBI man telling me when you talk about the church, you're talking about the mob. And I know that's true. How come the Pope and the cardinals wear the little Jewish yarmulke? Anybody ever thought about that? Remember the Pope wears the little beanie cap? I thought that's Jewish. How many Jews in this world do not know that the beanie that they wear, the little yarmulke, is not Jewish? That's not Jewish. It's Roman. That's why the Pope wears it. And the Jews in the Middle Ages were told to show respect for, that's why women were always to wear a headdress, because they had to show respect for their father, their husband. Consequently, the man had to wear the headdress to show his respect for the Pope and for the church. So when a Jew wears the yarmulke, he's showing respect for his masters, the Roman masters. And today, how many people know that? And I mean, how many people even give a damn? Nobody reads. And consequently, as I said in the beginning, we're all word control humans. And I don't like being called names. I am fascinated. I don't even like being introduced as an authority, because in point of fact, I'm not an authority on anything. After 42 years, I am totally convinced I'm not. I'm not an authority on anything. I'm just an ordinary man pursuing extraordinary knowledge. If you got more than 500 brain cells, you can read a book. You can go to a library and start reading about religion, start reading about organizations, start reading about organized crime, and before you know it, you start finding out the United States government is a fraud. It's a privately owned corporation. It's a fraud. And then you begin to see how the whole world system we live under is a fraud. It's a racist fraud. It keeps people at odds. Well, of course, it makes sense why there's wars. I mean, think about Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was a classic example. It's one of my favorite examples. In 1913, 1915, whatever, when the war was finally over, I think it was 1919, it was finally over, Germany had not only surrendered, but it was totally starving. It was broke. There were people dying in the streets of starvation. As a matter of fact, you see pictures in the old newsreels of every 6 or 12 hours, horse-drawn carriages would go through the major cities of Germany and pick up the people who had actually starved to death on the street. That's how bad off Germany was. Then comes a few years later, a man named Adolf Schicklgruber became known as Adolf Hitler, and he starts ranting and raving about all the terrible things that happened to the wonderful German people. And before you know it, he starts getting financial backing, and in about 7 years, built the greatest military war machine the world has ever known. Have you ever tried to buy a battleship or a tank? You ever tried to buy machine guns? And Adolf Hitler financed the greatest single war machine, and the Nazis were the best dressed, the best fed, the most well-armed, the most well-trained. They were a frightening display of despotic power on the face of the earth. And no one seems to have asked the question, where the hell did they get the money? They were broke. Where did they get the money? Well, they got the money from, first, British royalty. English royalty are the biggest Nazis on the face of the earth. The Queen Mother that rides around in her golden chariot, a Nazi. A murderous, blood-sucking Nazi.